Hello, my name is Matthew, and I've been working my way through the Norton Anthology of English Literature, and I've been reading some selections from Francis Bacon, and I've been looking forward to this. He's one of those major English figures that I've just never read before, so I was kind of excited. Um, the collection here are all portions of selected essays. He was considered one of the first essayists as a distinct genre, a very specific form of writing. And I am sorry to say that I do find myself quite disappointed in what I've read over the past couple hours. And I'll try to explain myself. The first essay is Of Truth, and so it's just an essay on truth. It had a couple interesting points, but I didn't leave feeling as if I have a better understanding of truth now that I've read his essay, and I don't think the people at the time would have either. The second essay is Of Marriage and Single Life, and I'll read the first sentence and we can go from there. He that hath wife and children hath given hostages to fortune, for they are impediments to great enterprises, either of virtue or mischief. Certainly the best works, and of the greatest merit for the public, have proceeded from the unmarried or childless men. And if you just set aside the sexism, if you just excuse that as a product of the time, the other main point that he's making is that great works have only come from single childless men, which is just untrue. And the issue that I have is this is the first sentence, and it's the underlying premise that as a reader I have to accept is true in order to follow his logical train of thought through the rest of the essay. And when you read something like that and think, well, I already don't agree with you, it puts me on much more uncertain ground to want to follow along with anything else he has to say. And as I read it, there's just nothing there that I could even extract. The next essay, Of Great Place, and this is where I started really losing a lot of sympathy to the writer. The first sentence, men in great place are thrice servants, servants of the sovereign or state, servants of fame, and servants of business. So as they have no freedom, neither in persons, nor in their actions, nor in their times. So he's saying that people that hold high positions are actually carrying this burden and are in some ways really worse off than people that have low positions, no power, or are in poverty. And later on he talks about the virtues of having an inferior position in life. And this is coming from a person that rose through the ranks. He became a Lord Chancellor. So it's this self-pitying view. Now that he is quite comfortable and respected and doesn't have to really worry about financial difficulties, he can now explain how that's really a very difficult position that shouldn't even be envied. And he does go on to say that people in power do have inclinations towards corruption, and why that's a bad thing. But for the most part, he's saying that people in power are all really trying to do good, and it's a burden that he has on his shoulders. And it's just not a good look. And the rest of the essay didn't do anything for me. The next essay, Of Studies. And I'll read another line. Um, Now he's talking about how to read, or what you should do, how you should think about what you're reading. Read not to contradict and confute, nor to believe and take for granted, nor to find talk and discourse, but to weigh and consider. And this was sort of the point where I realized what was going on. So he is not writing, I believe that all the things that I've read so far, he hasn't written in order to persuade me, or certainly not to entertain me. But instead, uh, he's writing as if he's right and he's telling me he's right. And I also believe that it's almost as if he's writing to an audience that he knows just has to agree with him. So there's no way that you could read that and think, okay, Francis Bacon, you're telling me this is how it is, so I just have to believe it. Do not, read not to contradict and confute, nor to believe and take for granted, nor to find talk and discourse. So don't read in order to have conversations, but instead to weigh and consider. It's just so stuffy and wrong. It's just an incorrect statement. The next selection is Novum Organum, something that he wrote in Latin and had to be later on translated. It has, where is it? It translates to the new instrument of learning. And although it was interesting, it doesn't age very well because there's an underlying assertion that science and philosophy are just completely entwined. And although there's still arguments to be made for that point, it's pretty commonly assumed that science has now grown to be a distinct feature and separate from the study of philosophy. And then the last thing it has in here is the New Atlantis, and this was probably the most engaging thing that I've read, and it's now not an essay. This is a fictional piece that is similar to Utopia by Sir Thomas More, and the idea is that someone has gone to this far-off place and is being introduced to something called Solomon's House, and it has all the aspects of society that are shown to be improvements or goals that a society of the time should be aspiring to. And this was quite interesting because, let me see if it's in here, just 30 years after this was published, there was a Royal Society instituted in England. So a society made officially for like philosophy and learning and study, for people to get together and think about things. And that is pretty interesting as far as a piece of writing that had tangible, real, substantive changes. There was something made out of this. And the writing was interesting. I would probably want to read more kind of like this than any of his essays. And of course, he's also known for all of his scientific writings, which are not represented here. And I mostly just feel like he was not writing to a public, to a large reading group that he had to win over. Instead, it feels like he's either writing to people like a captive audience, people that are below him that have to just agree with what he is writing, or people in very selective spheres. So other essayists or other scientists. I could be wrong about that, but just from what I've read, it does read as if he knows that he's right. He's telling you that he's right, and you have to just agree with him because he's Francis Bacon. Um, if that's not the case, I didn't find him to be a master of powers of persuasion. He didn't convince me. He just sounds like a stuffy old know-it-all. Apparently, he was a brilliant mind, so maybe he's earned some of that, but he hasn't earned that from me. I probably will not be reading any more Francis Bacon, and I am disappointed because I thought that this was going to be an enriching experience. Instead, I was kind of furrowing my brow almost immediately. So let me know if you've read Francis Bacon. I'm sure, I know that I'm missing something or a lot of something. So if you know what that is, please let me know. Let me know if you love them or whatever. Leave a comment if you would like. And thank you for watching.